5 weather.
Well, we had a few lenticular clouds seen in Colorado Springs yesterday from Linda and also from Carter. And lenticular clouds are really cool. Just imagine the mountains are like a rock in a river. When you have strong flow coming off the mountains, it creates little waves. And at the peak of the waves, we see these lenticular clouds form. They get these beautiful layers and they don't move. So a lot of paranoia says they're UFO clouds, but we call them pancake clouds. They look like a lens, which is why they're called lenticular clouds. It shows a stable atmosphere. We had high pressure, stability yesterday, and we had warmth. Now today we'll have very similar conditions. We are starting out pretty mild in many spots. It's 48 in Trinidad, 46 in Rye, 40 in Canyon City, and by this afternoon we'll still be well above average, but a little cooler than yesterday's 60s. To 53 in the Springs today, 58 in Pueblo. We'll still have those high clouds in place today, so it will limit our direct sunshine, but it won't limit our temperatures too much. We'll see chillier air for sure into the mountains, 30s, 40s, 50s, or 60s into the plains today. Another pleasant afternoon. It will be a bit windier though, so keep that in mind as you're heading out the door. Now, as we transition to next week, our pattern gets a lot more active. We have a 3-track storm system moving in. Storm number 1 actually comes in by tonight, and we'll see mountain snowfall favored with this one. Storm number 2 looks to favor the plains, and we'll likely see a bit of snowfall to impact you middle of the week. And then the later half of the week, we have storm number 3 that impacts us Friday into Saturday. So our pattern definitely getting more active. Starting with storm number 1, we're looking at snow moving into the western slope right now and the mountains. You just can't have that radar penetrating through the mountains, so it's a little harder to pick up. But we are going to see that active snow in the high country today, and through tonight we do have winter weather advisories or winter storm warnings into the mountain zones. Now, the San Juans especially will pick up 1 to 2 feet of snow with this system. So meanwhile, back here into our region, we will mostly see this snow along the Continental Divide. A few stray showers will make it off of the divide this afternoon and evening with very minimal impacts, but you could see a stray flurry over Monument Hill, over the higher elevations of Fremont County. But generally it's going to be a pretty dry day for us. Overnight lows will drop into the 20s, and by tomorrow we're going to be a little bit cooler, still comfortable, seasonable. And then looking ahead to Wednesday, I'm tracking storm number 2. Snow accumulations are definitely going to be tweaked by our weather team, but here's my first assessment on what's to come. Several inches looks to be on tap for many of us, favoring the Pikes Peak region and the plains. So that's going to be our next high impact weather system, Tuesday, Wednesday. Friday, still tracking a bit of uncertainty with that one, but overall we're trending much cooler in the extended outlook and a couple chances of snow. So for Pueblo, enjoy the 50s for the next 2 days. We are going to drop to the 30s and 40s for the rest of the week. A couple chances of snow. Canyon City, you're also following this pattern, cooling off to the 30s and 40s next week. And the highest impact snowfall looks to be Tuesday night into the entirety of Wednesday. And for Woodland Park, you're only going to reach the 20s for several days next week.
So we finally got some of that snow melted off, and it looks like it's going to be back. And so really, it looks like pretty much midweek, both the schools and anyone who's driving in, to work, especially in the morning, they're going to have to keep an eye on this.
Yes, I would say especially Wednesday. That's going to be your highest impact day, probably a weather alert day for us. So as you're planning ahead, just note that it'll be winter driving conditions.
All right. Well, thanks for tracking that for us. All right.